In the world of comic books and superheroes, there's a lot of debate and hype around different characters' rogues galleries, and I feel like the one that's at the absolute top of the list that's always talked about is Batman's rogues gallery.
Of course, yeah. I feel as though some of his villains are talked about as not even just the best villains in comic books, but some of the best villains in fiction.
There's always a statement of Marvel has the superheroes. You watch them for the actual hero characters.
Yeah.
And DC, it's for the villains. And I feel like that's especially true for Batman.
Yeah, he has easily the strongest rogues gallery in all of comics, and it seems like a lot of people kind of forget that. They forget that he has such a massive, rich, epic roster of villains because it's just so enticing to just always do a Joker story. But I feel like in recent years, we've kind of been overexposed to a lot of Joker stories. Now, don't get me wrong, he is my favorite comic book villain, like, bar none.
He's great. There's no denying that.
He's incredible.
But it's to the point where he's, like, overshadowing some other villains in the public perception.
But he is, and a lot of people, I feel, just think of Joker as, like, Batman's only villain, and the rest are, like, kind of lame in people's eyes. They're all so rich and varied and interesting and from all different walks of life. And today we're going to be talking about why Joker isn't Batman's only good villain.
Yeah, there's a whole roster there, and I think a lot of it comes down to the public perception just from the movies. You know what I mean? Like Batman 89, Jack Nicholson, he really popularized the character, everyone fell in love with his performance, and then you had, of course, Heath Ledger. Legendary performance, and everyone had like Joker fucking tattoos and shirts on suddenly.
Oh, and he was so good, and people were so into it that before he passed away tragically, he was also just going to be in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, even in the movies now, everyone's just like, oh, we want to see what Matt Reeves is going to do with like Joker in the second or third movie.
Yeah, and I'm like,
what is that? What the fuck is that?
Now I don't, after we got that scene.
Oh, God, yeah. Like, God, his laugh is just, I don't know how I feel about it.
Needs work, needs some coaching.
Yeah, agreed. But yeah, let's get into who are some actual really great, underrated, underused villains of Batman's arsenal that we should definitely all be appreciating a little bit more.
Yeah.
But guys, we are the Comic Lads. My name is Merlin.
My name's Thomas. And before we get into our discussion, guys, question of the week. Who is your favorite Batman villain that is not Joker? Don't say Joker.
Yeah. Let's see your picks, guys.
Yeah.
Also, guys, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps us out. We're a small growing channel.
Please.
You know, every like helps along our journey.
Please like it.
Also, consider subscribing. Join the Comic Lad Nation.
And
No, we're not calling it that.
And become a fellow lad.
A fellow lad.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
So for the honorable mentions, Merlin told me his, and I was kind of taken aback.
He laughed in my face. He laughed in my face.
Because I was like, what, bro?
Okay, this is a very particular honorable mention, and I feel like both of ours, they're in the honorable mention slot because they're good villains, but they also haven't been explored enough to really know how deep their character goes.
Yeah, not really at all,
Especially mine.
Especially yours. So who's yours? Let's get into it.
Okay, drum roll, please. Is White Rabbit.
Yeah, bro. Why do you like this character?
Okay, well, there's a few reasons, obviously. But the one thing that kind of took me back by this villain is I remember it very distinctly, too, when I was reading it.
Yeah, bro, when you were 14.
Why are you calling me out right now? If you guys have seen this character, you know she's obviously dressed like a Playboy bunny. Very, like, overtly sexual, but I think there's a lot of coolness about this character. And I remember the first time I read it, and I think it was like the New 52, it was called Batman The Dark Knight.
Dark Knight, right?
Yeah, it was the volume 1. And she was kind of like the main villain of that story, but kind of like one of those villains that's playing on the outskirts and is kind of like toying with Batman and leading him on to all these, you know, different loose ends that he's chasing. Once again, we don't have too much of this character. Besides that one story that I read of hers, I don't think she's appeared in too much, although we were just discussing before we started shooting this video. She was going to be in the canceled Damian Wayne Batman Beyond game.
Yeah, as like a creepy, like really old lady version of her character, but like still wearing the same costume, so you're like, ugh.
But that would have been really cool to see, especially because, like we said, there hasn't been much to really, you know, read up on her in recent years.
And like, all jokes aside, I think she would just be a really cool foil to Mad Hatter, and I'm sure he was in that volume, probably.
Well, yeah, that's the weird thing, too, is that she's called the White Rabbit.
They should be a duo.
Yeah.
They would be awesome as a duo, and then if they were, you could get away with, like, making all of Mad Hatter's stories like creepy and having to do with Alice.
Yeah.
You know?
And one thing that's kind of cool about her too is that she kind of has a Two-Face / ventriloquist thing going on where she can split her body into two different personalities. One's her like civilian one, yeah, and the other one is her White Rabbit persona. And they like come together and fuse into one person again. So yeah, just an underrated pick. I want to see more of her.
What do you mean by that? My honorable mention, Mr. Bloom. Now, I think we literally only saw this guy in like one arc. Back when Scott Snyder was wrapping up his Batman run in the New 52. He just looks so freaking cool.
He is really cool looking, and honestly, out of all the Batman character designs, he might be one of my favorite.
Really?
Because he's really, I mean, he's obviously Slenderman inspired.
Of course.
Yeah, and he's like this big, slinky, like tall figure.
Yeah, but he wears kind of like creepy clothes too. He's got like a weird kind of long but kind of crop top shirt with like weird mesh under it. You're like, ooh.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, that arc that he appears in Scott Snyder's Batman run, Commissioner Gordon and fights him, right?
Oh, yeah, that was... Yeah, and it's cool because that's kind of like his main villain, I feel, when he becomes Batman.
Yeah.
Very underrated story. Looking back on it, I look on it with fond memories. It was really cool to see Jim as Batman.
Also, the fact that we haven't even seen him against Bruce Wayne Batman, I feel like that will also be really interesting if they ever do it.
Yeah, because I feel like he's a villain that could translate really well to other media, like either video games or, dude, an animation.
Yeah, and Mr. Bloom almost feels like an H.P. Lovecraft character come to life.
Yeah.
Very, like, dark and, like, kind of a bit eerie and mythical, like Uncanny Valley shit.
Yeah, like, I don't even remember much about who he is or, like, what he was before he became Mr. Bloom. And that's kind of a cool little mystery factor there, kind of like Joker. But yeah, overall, not a villain that we know too much about, but one that I would love to see explored more, especially in other media besides comics.
100%. But let's get into the actual main list. We have a few characters we want to talk about and really highlight. Slight disclaimer, the ones that we have listed here aren't like any of the really, really, really big ones like Riddler and Two-Face.
Yeah, we're not going to touch the Gotham mobsters. I feel like they're in everyone's top 5 list of Batman villains. Like, probably even mine too.
Almost all the ones that have appeared in like the major movies we're not really going to talk about.
Exactly.
You know, because everyone's public perception, they know about it from the movies, these big blockbusters.
They know Joker, Two-Face, Riddler, and Penguin.
Exactly. We're going to get into not obscure, but just ones that deserve a bit more love. The first one we're going to talk about is Bane. You merely adopted a daughter.
Bane is awesome, and I feel like he kind of gets bitched in a lot of content that he's been in recently.
I was gonna say, like, a lot of people, when they think of Bane because of the movies, and, you know, we love the Arkham games, but I don't think they did him any justice.
No,
really,
they kind of made him like a big Hulk dumbass.
Yeah, he's a big, like, buffoon. Like, he gets trapped in fucking steel crates and shit, you know what I mean?
Sure, he can break out of those.
I never understood that. When you go in as Catwoman, he's like, oh, you better let me out of here. And she's like, that's no way to talk to a lady. And it's like, there's like an inch of steel.
Yeah, no, it's like the foil that's separating him, bro. He's literally the Hulk.
Yeah. Also, Joel Schumacher's infamous Batman and Robin, he was just basically a big mindless fucking grunt.
Yeah, that.
Bane.
Yeah, monosyllabic moron.
Yeah.
Oh, monkey work. Shit sucks, man. But I would love to see more of Bane.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, The Dark Knight Rises, it obviously featured Bane as the main antagonist to Batman.
Yeah.
Something still felt off about that Bane. I mean, for one thing, I couldn't understand what the fuck he was saying for, like, the majority of the movie.
Well, he's also, like an English guy and not South American.
Yeah.
That's, like, a big thing about him.
Yeah, and also they kind of did, like, a weird bitched version of Venom, you know?
Well, yeah, it's like morphine, no? That he, like, is constantly breathing.
Yeah. You know, one of the kind of fun things about Bane, especially in a physical fight, is that he always goes into it and he's already super ripped in a big physical challenge for Batman. But I love those moments when he might be slightly losing the fight and then he decides to juices up. And he becomes a bit bigger and you're like, oh fuck, it's getting real right now.
Yeah, it's really cool. And he deserves his due. It's tough because I feel like Bane's biggest story was his debut and he instantly lost. And I feel like he's never been able to get back to that height.
You're talking about Nightfall. Yeah, Nightfall was interesting too, and we were talking about this before because it really highlights in that story that Bane isn't just a physical force. he's also an intellectual, which like isn't highlighted enough, I feel.
The general public doesn't think of Bane as a mastermind. They think of him as a brute tank villain. The truth is, at least from his inception, he was on par with Batman in terms of being like a combat tactician.
He was presenting himself originally in Nightfall as this big mastermind that could really play like chess with Batman, you know what I mean? Move all these pieces around.
Yeah.
Which I feel like makes a really great villain. It was to the point where he's even using Batman's rogues gallery against him just to weaken him throughout that story arc, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And I think what kind of did Bane in terms of his popularity was that he's not really the main villain of Nightfall. It ends up being like Azrael Batman who overshadows Bane, so Bane gets beaten like twice in that story.
Yeah, it's like they built him up and just to like tear him down at the end.
Instantly.
Yeah.
All that to say though, I think Bane deserves more love, and I think he needs to be treated with a bit more thought when thinking about his stories. He's smart.
He's smart.
Maybe let's show that.
Let's combine both the physical and the mental. Let's create something special with him.
Absolutely.
Sounds like I'm like shooting a sex tape with him or something. Let's create something special.
All right, the next villain we're going to talk about is... I never think of him as being in my top 5 Batman villains, but fuck, he might be. He's so cool and weird and interesting, and we're kind of talking about 2 villains here. We're talking about Ventriloquist and Scarface.
We brought this up in a couple other videos, you know, like different villains that we felt were missing from the Arkham series.
Yeah.
And Scarface is just one of those villains that fits so well into Batman's mythos, I feel.
He does. He's so creepy and weird and really tragic.
It's tragic, it's dark, and there's almost a supernatural element to him. You know what I mean? Like the Scarface dummy, is it an actual split persona of the ventriloquist, or is it like almost
a spirit?
Exactly.
From the gallows tree.
Because there has been hints at that in the past in the comics.
So cool. Basically, if you're not familiar with the ventriloquist and Scarface, he's a ventriloquist. He's like this little old man, this scrawny dude, unassuming, who kind of seems like, you know, a pushover.
He's unthreatening.
He has dissociative identity disorder so severely to the point where his alternate personality is a dummy that he ventriloquists? Ventriloquizes?
Quizes? Definitely not.
No way, right? But he doesn't know that he's throwing his voice and using ventriloquism to control. In the ventriloquist's mind, Scarface is in control and is a completely separate entity from himself.
Yeah, I love that, because we have a lot of different characters like Two-Face with split personalities, but I feel like more or less it's not explored really enough the conflict that those personalities have, and seeing this small, frail little old man, the ventriloquist, argue and be scared of the split personality, Scarface, makes for some really great back and forth.
And it's so creepy because it's so believable that they are 2 separate entities, so much so that even their thugs, their cronies that they work with, know and treat Scarface, the doll, as the real boss, and the ventriloquist as just a flunky.
And I love the episode in Batman the Animated Series especially. Batman makes it seem like there's a mole in the gang, and they're so split the personalities that Scarface starts accusing the ventriloquist, and the ventriloquist starts freaking
his
out.
own gun at his face.
Yeah, it's so funny.
And also, Scarface orders their thugs to kill the ventriloquist, and they're like, but boss, if we do that, you're dead. He's like, I'm surrounded by traitors. Oh, good.
It's really great. This is one character that I feel would so benefit in the Matt Reeves Batman.
Oh, I would love to see it.
I need at least a cameo in the trilogy if they end up doing it. The next character we're going to talk about is Ra's al Ghul. Ra's, I think, is really interesting to us because he's not a character that Batman meets for the first time, you know, patrolling the streets of Gotham.
Yeah, he's not like a year 1, year 2 type villain. He's like a kind of prime Batman villain.
There's that, but it's also the fact that he knows Batman's history, and in some continuities, he even trains him.
That's my headcanon. I love that
It's
Ra's
great.
is one of the people that trains him. It's so cool.
Especially in The Night.
By Chip Zdarsky.
Oh my god.
Dude, what a book.
One of the best, not the best, but like top 3 Batman stories I think I've read.
Nice.
Really, really great. Which in that book, you know, details Batman's whole journey in training to be Batman.
Yeah, it's kind of like his Smallville, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a pre-origin story. It's like a prelude to Batman.
It is.
And you see all these different people that he's trained with throughout the years, like Zatara. But one of the most prominent figures he trains with near the end of the book is Ra's al Ghul. And I love it because they kind of have like a mentor mutual respect.
There is a
going
mutual
on.
respect between them because there are a lot of parts of Ra's that are benevolent and with good intentions, but he's also like such a radical extremist. That's where they clash. They have similar ideals. Their morals is where they split off, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Thanos thing. You can kind of understand where he's coming from, you know, like with Thanos, it's obviously overpopulation.
Yeah.
But with Raish, it's
genocide.
corruption. Yeah, corruption is so deeply entwined in society that we need to eradicate it all, which means killing a fuckload of people. What do you think of the whole dynamic of Raish almost treating Batman like his successor, too?
It's so cool.
Yeah.
For a long time, he just wants him to be his son.
Yeah, because I think something interesting about Raish in a lot of continuities is that given the chance, I don't think he'd execute Batman or Bruce. No. You know what I mean? I think you bring up a good point. There's something almost deeper than the mutual respect they have for each other. He genuinely like cares for him in his own weird, twisted way.
Agreed. I really like their kind of familial ties that they have.
100%.
Alright guys, the final villain we're going to talk about today, honestly one of the best villains in DC Comics, if not in comics in general. We're talking about Mr. Freeze.
And it does need to be noted, huge shout out to Paul Dini in Batman the Animated Series.
He made the character.
Yeah.
Even if he didn't invent like Mr. Zero in the 60s, Paul Dini is the father of Mr. Freeze.
100%. Completely revamped him, his origin story. If you guys weren't aware, before that, Mr. Freeze was just like a clown with a freeze gun, basically.
He was like a German like bank robber.
Yeah, and Paul Dini really revamped him in the animated series to have this whole origin story with Nora. He's a tragic fallen hero type villain that's just trying to save his wife by any means necessary, even if that means robbing and hurting people to get to that destination.
And when he can't save her, he turns to vengeance. But you're on his side when you're watching, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of relatable aspects to Batman's villains.
Yeah.
He pulls on the heartstrings the most.
Mr. Freeze is the one that is always closest to redemption.
And he's such a tragic character because if he ever cured Nora, I don't think he would continue his life of crime.
I don't think so either. Like, I think we're both obviously thinking of how his ending plays out in Batman Arkham Knight, where they get to live both of their last moments, both of their last days together.
Beautiful ending.
Gorgeous ending. I'm gonna kind of segue that into talking about a story that they did recently in the main comics where they brought Nora back and she became like a Mrs. Freeze villain with him. And I'm like, that sucks.
Yeah, that kind of takes away the heart of the character, I feel.
Because at their heart, I don't think of Mr. Freeze as like a malicious, evil villain.
No, like everything he does should be in the betterment of saving Nora's life.
Yeah, and that's all he thinks about. Obviously, that will lead him to do terrible things, but to him, he doesn't care because the one thing he cares about is saving her.
And before, just speaking about movies, oh my god, it is so long overdue to have this guy appear in an actual good live-action Batman movie.
How have we only gotten Arnie, bro?
You know what killed the dinosaurs?
I say.
I fucking hate him, dude. Like, that depiction of him, oh god, such a waste.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, we need Mr. Freeze, dude.
Those are the main villains we really want to highlight and address. But question for you.
Yes.
Favorite Batman villain?
That's not Joker?
That's not Joker.
That's not Joker.
Because obviously Joker is our favorite.
Joker is my favorite.
Yeah.
Joker is my favorite villain, period. But, dude, I gotta go with Two-Face, man. We didn't talk about him today, but just from his origin story, which I am gonna be real, there aren't too many great Two-Face stories that aren't just his origin retold, but his origin is fucking amazing, dude. Not only in Batman The Long Halloween, but especially in the Two-Face two-parter in Batman the Animated Series. That is one of my favorite superhero stories ever told. In that version, at least, you feel as though there's still room for redemption.
Speaking of great heroes that have fallen from grace, like Mr. Freeze, Two-Face is definitely another one up there.
He is.
Yeah.
What about you? Who's your favorite Batman villain besides? Okay,
well, you know who it is.
It's gotta be Riddler, right?
It's Riddler.
Yeah.
For a few different reasons. I mean, one, I just love his outfit. I would totally rock the shit out of that. And I did when we were kids, when we dressed up as Batman villains.
That was the best Halloween ever.
You were Joker, I was Riddler, and I just remember my mom helping me like sew on little like question marks onto the shitty raggedy sweater that I had.
Oh, good.
So I've always really liked him, especially recently with Tom King's Riddler One Bad Day.
What a book, dude.
Oh my goodness. If you guys haven't read that, and you put me onto Tom King, so full credit to you.
Oh, yeah.
But if you guys want to like get to know some really underrated underrated villains slash characters across Marvel and DC. Check out his writing.
Just everything else that he's written besides Batman is truly some of the best comic books I've ever read in my entire life, and that I think I ever will read. So
He's low-key carrying the industry, right?
he is carrying the industry right now, and nobody wants to admit that, bro.
Yeah.
You mentioned Riddler's costume being your favorite. Obviously, you mean the suit with the bowler version.
Yeah.
Yeah, not like the onesie. But also Frank Gorshin's onesie from Batman 66.
Yeah.
That fit goes so
With
hard.
the little purple mask.
I love the little purple mask. It's
No,
really
I mean,
good.
Riddler with a question mark cane, a green suit with black question marks. I mean, it goes so hard for me.
And a little purple tie and purple brim on the bowler hat.
Hell yeah, I love it.
Oh, it's peak Riddler. But guys, just to reiterate, question of the week: who is your favorite Batman villain that is not Joker? Let us know in the comments down below. Please like the video, share and subscribe with your friends. It means so much to us. We love going on this journey with you guys every week.
Love it.
Talking about
Building the comic lad army.
building the lad army.
The lad army. Join the lads.
Join the comic lads as we lad our way to 2,000 subscribers.
We're skirting the line there.
We're not on
close.
the cusp of it, but we're on the cusp of being on the cusp of it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And you can help us get there by
Yes,
hitting that subscribe button.
Yes, you can. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next week.
We love you.
We love you very much.
Peace.
Peace.